I picked up my mother-in-law from Miami after her spiritual yoga retreat. She bragged about blowing $82,000 on spas and jewelry, all charged to my card. I smiled. What she didn't know. I had already reported the card stolen. Hours later, police showed up at her hotel. She's banned from re-entering the U.S. My hands trembled as I stared at the bank statement on my phone screen. $82,000. The numbers blurred through my tears. Behind me, our workshop hummed with the sound of saws and sanders, 15 people whose paychecks depended on me doing the right thing. My mother-in-law's text lit up my screen. The spiritual energy in Miami is transformative. So grateful you could help with my journey, sweetie. Attached was a selfie. Delaney beaming beside a display case of diamond jewelry, her freshly massaged face glowing with expensive serums. I zoomed in on the price tag visible in the reflection of the glass. $14,000 for the bracelet on her wrist. The same bracelet she'd charged to our business account. The account that needed to cover payroll tomorrow. In that moment, 7 years of excuses and justifications shattered. I knew what I had to do. If you've ever had to choose between peace and truth in a relationship, this story is for you. Subscribe now. It's free and helps our channel grow. Now, let's see what happens when Noelle finally stands up to her manipulative mother-in-law. Holden and I built Restoration Revival from nothing but sawdust and dreams. We met at an estate sale where we both reached for the same weathered shaker side table. Instead of competing, Holden suggested we restore it together. I still remember his hands, strong but gentle, sanding down decades of neglect to reveal the beauty beneath. You have an eye for potential, he told me that day, though I wasn't sure if he meant the furniture or something else. Within a year, we were married and converting his grandmother's barn into a workshop in our small Massachusetts town. Holden crafted the pieces, bringing forgotten furniture back to life through skilled hands and patient restoration. I managed the business side, building relationships with clients, maintaining our books and creating the warm, inviting showroom where people could envision these pieces in their homes. We complement each other perfectly, Holden would say, kissing my forehead after closing a difficult sale or finishing a challenging restoration. You make this business whole. But the truth was messy. While I projected confidence to clients, I secretly doubted my business acumen. Each night I'd double-check our accounting spreadsheets, terrified of making mistakes. Business had always been my father's world before he passed, a world I'd been taught women should stay clear of. For years I battled imposter syndrome. Even as our business grew from a side hustle to a legitimate operation with employees and a downtown showroom, I kept expecting someone to expose me as a fraud. When local media featured us as Massachusetts' premier restoration specialists, I smiled for the cameras but whispered my fears to Holden at night. What if I'm not cut out for this? I asked, scrolling through our growing financial responsibilities. You're the heart of this business, Holden insisted. You always have been. 7 years into our marriage, on a crisp autumn morning, Holden placed a stack of papers on my desk with a steaming mug of coffee. What's this? I asked, scanning the legal documents. Partnership papers, he said, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Equal partners officially. It's time. My stomach tightened as I flipped through the pages. But you built this. You're the master craftsman. Holden knelt beside my chair, taking my hands in his. We built this. Together. Your name deserves to be on every document, every account, every decision. I trust you completely, Noelle. I signed the papers with shaking hands, equally thrilled and terrified. That night we celebrated with champagne in the workshop, toasting among the half-restored pieces that represented our shared vision. The partnership brought unexpected complications. My mother-in-law Delaney, recently divorced and struggling financially, suddenly took renewed interest in our business. What began as occasional visits evolved into near-daily appearances at our workshop. Just checking on my successful son and daughter-in-law, she'd say, bringing coffee cake and scanning our showroom with calculating eyes. Initially, I welcomed her presence. Since marrying Holden, I desperately wanted her approval. Her son was her world, and I often felt measured against impossible standards. Now, as a business partner, I thought I could finally prove my worth. Delaney quickly positioned herself as an unofficial consultant. You should raise your prices on these dining sets, she'd suggest, or that supplier is taking advantage of you. Each comment landed like a judgment on my business decisions. Holden noticed her influence first. "Is Mom giving financial advice again?" he asked one evening, his tone carefully neutral as he reviewed our monthly statements. "She has good insights sometimes," I defended, though doubt crept in as I avoided his eyes. The pattern escalated gradually. First came the emergency, when Delaney needed a short-term loan for roof repairs. Then the investment opportunity that required immediate action. Each time I transferred funds from our business account without consulting Holden first, promising myself I'd tell him later. 3 months after signing the partnership papers, Holden approached me with a printout of our bank statement. "Noel, there was a $3,000 withdrawal last Thursday. Was that for the new lathe?" My chest tightened as I remembered writing the check to cover Delaney's property tax bill. An emergency, she'd called it, promising to repay us within the month. "It's a supplier deposit," I mumbled, the lie bitter on my tongue. "I'll organize the receipt tonight." His eyes held mine for a long moment before he nodded and returned to the workshop. That night, I stared at myself in the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the woman who had just lied to her husband. I promised myself it would be the last time. But it wasn't. Delaney's emergencies multiplied, and with each one I felt myself sliding deeper into a pattern of appeasing her. The desperate need for her approval, the fear of disappointing her, the belief that setting boundaries meant risking my marriage. "Family helps family," she'd remind me, her voice carrying the weight of emotional leverage. "Holden understands that. He's always been such a devoted son." The implied comparison was clear. If I truly loved Holden, I would help his mother without question. Each time I considered confronting her, I remembered the family photo albums she'd shown me. Decades of holidays and celebrations where Holden's ex-girlfriends appeared briefly before disappearing from the narrative. The unspoken threat: I could be replaced in the story too. Last Christmas, Delaney had cornered me in the kitchen while I prepared dinner. "Holden's always had a soft spot for Janet Miller," she mused, referring to his high school sweetheart. "Did you know she's divorced now? Such a shame. She always understood our family dynamics." That night, I transferred another $1,500 for her unexpected medical expense without question. At my lowest point, I found myself driving to the bank at 7 a.m. on a Saturday after Delaney called crying about an overdrawn account. As I waited for the teller, I noticed an elderly woman being helped by her daughter. Gentle patience as the older woman counted her pension money. Their loving, respectful interaction made my stomach clench with the realization that what I had with Delaney wasn't normal. By spring, our business checking account was showing the strain. Twice, I'd had to delay ordering supplies to ensure we had enough for payroll. I started working weekends, telling Holden I was catching up on paperwork while actually taking on freelance design projects to replace the money I'd given his mother. The wall of my office became a testament to my growing anxiety. Sticky notes tracking payments and repayment promises that Delaney never kept. I developed migraines that would leave me nauseated and seeing spots, triggered by the distinctive ringtone I'd assigned to her calls. "You seem stressed lately," Holden observed one night, massaging my shoulders as I hunched over the laptop. "Is everything okay with the books?" "Just seasonal fluctuations," I lied, closing the spreadsheet showing a $12,000 deficit from our projected quarterly earnings. When Delaney announced her plans for a spiritual yoga retreat in Miami, necessary for her emotional healing after the divorce, I felt a flicker of relief at the thought of 2 weeks without her daily visits. That relief evaporated when she suggested becoming an authorized user on our business card, just for emergencies during travel. "What if something happens while I'm away? You wouldn't want me stranded in a strange city," she'd said, her eyes wide with practiced vulnerability. "Holden would be devastated if you refused such a simple request." I heard myself agreeing despite the warning bells clanging in my head. As I added her name to our account, the bank manager raised an eyebrow. "Business purposes only, I assume?" she asked, sliding the paperwork across the desk. "Family emergency contingency," I murmured, unable to meet her eyes. That decision would eventually break everything, and somehow fix it too. 2 days after adding Delaney to our business card, I found a glossy brochure on my desk. Transcendental Healing, Miami's premier spiritual retreat. A yellow sticky note in Delaney's looping handwriting read, "This is exactly what the universe has been calling me toward." Thank you for supporting my journey. The retreat's website featured serene people in white linen doing yoga on pristine beaches, alongside promises of spiritual rebirth and energetic alignment. The prices made my breath catch: $6,800 for the basic package, which apparently didn't include the essential crystal healing upgrades or chakra balancing spa treatments. It's quite an investment in herself, Holden remarked that evening, flipping through the brochure I'd shown him. His tone was neutral, but I caught the subtle arch of his eyebrow. She's been through a lot with the divorce, I said, the words automatic. Maybe this will help her find some peace. Holden smiled, but something flickered behind his eyes, a momentary sadness I couldn't quite read. Mom has always found expensive ways to find herself. Remember her pottery phase? Or the year she was going to become a professional equestrian? I nodded, remembering the custom-built pottery studio that now housed gardening supplies, the thoroughbred horse sold after 3 riding lessons. Holden hesitated, choosing his words carefully. Just make sure we're clear about boundaries, okay? I nodded again, guilt churning in my stomach as I thought about the credit card authorization I'd already processed. The night before Delaney's departure, she invited us for dinner at her house, a meal she'd ordered from the gourmet market and arranged on her china as if she'd cooked it herself. To new beginnings, she toasted, crystal wineglass catching the light. She wore a new silk kaftan with price tags tucked discreetly beneath the collar. I'd spotted them when hanging her jacket. As Holden cleared dishes, Delaney leaned close, her perfume enveloping me in a cloud of expensive sandalwood. I can't thank you enough for the card access, she whispered. It's just for emergencies, of course. You understand my anxiety about traveling alone at my age. At 58, with recent Botox smoothing any hint of age from her forehead, Delaney hardly seemed vulnerable. But I nodded, patting her hand. Of course. Just for emergencies. Her fingers tightened around mine, nails digging slightly into my skin. Holden doesn't need to worry about these little details. He has enough on his mind with the business. Before I could respond, she'd moved on, calling to Holden about dessert. I sat frozen, realizing she'd just bound me to secrecy with casual efficiency. The transaction alerts began the day after Delaney landed in Miami. The first seemed innocent enough. $340 at Moonrise Wellness. I assumed it was the retreat's check-in fee. Then came $890 at Eternal Beauty Day Spa, followed by $1,200 at Chukra's Fine Dining. Each ping of my phone sent a jolt of anxiety through me. By day 3, I'd started keeping a running tally in a notebook hidden in my desk drawer. Holden noticed my jumpiness. Everything okay? You keep checking your phone. Just supplier updates, I lied, silencing the notifications that now made me physically ill. Meanwhile, Delaney's texts painted a picture of austere spiritual devotion. Up at 5 a.m. for sunrise meditation. My heart is so open to the universe's abundance. Fasting today to purify my energy field. Sending healing vibrations to you both. Learning to detach from material possessions. So freeing. Each message arrived ironically timed. The fasting text came minutes after a $475 charge at a seafood restaurant. The detachment from possessions followed a $3,200 purchase at a designer boutique. 1 week into her retreat, I received an actual emergency call from our bookkeeper, Margaret. "No, I'm processing payroll and noticed something concerning," she said, her voice tense. "There's been unusual activity on the business card. Numerous large transactions in Miami." My throat closed. "I'll look into it." "You should." "There's a pending charge for $11,000 from somewhere called Forever Diamonds that's going to hit tomorrow." That night, after Holden fell asleep, I locked myself in our home office and logged into our banking portal. The full transaction history loaded, page after page of indulgence disguised as spiritual necessity. Luxury hotels, high-end restaurants, boutique shopping, spa treatments, a yacht rental, and jewelry. So much jewelry. My hands shook as I calculated the total. $67,429. And that was before the $11,000 pending charge and whatever else she'd spend in her remaining week. Tears blurred my vision as I scrolled through her corresponding texts from those same days. This healing retreat is changing me profoundly. Living so simply here. Just meditation and vegetable broth. learning that true happiness comes from within, not material things. A notification popped up on my screen. A payment declined for our lumber supplier. The same supplier who'd provided the maple for the 6 dining tables Holden had been working on for weeks, commissioned by our biggest client. Dawn found me still at the computer, comparing accounts payable against our dwindling balance. We were $15,000 short for the month's expenses, including payroll due in 3 days. I rested my forehead against the cool desk, defeat crushing my chest. How would I explain this to Holden? To our employees? Our business, our dream, could collapse because I'd been too weak to stand up to Delaney. At 7 a.m. Holden found me there, surrounded by spreadsheets and empty coffee mugs. "Know what's going on?" His voice was gentle but firm as he took in my red-rimmed eyes and trembling hands. "I think we might have a cash flow problem this month," I whispered. "I'm not sure we can make payroll." The concern in his eyes broke me further. This man who trusted me completely was about to discover how thoroughly I'd betrayed that trust. "Let me help," he said, pulling up a chair. "We'll figure it out together." As he opened his laptop, my phone pinged with a new notification. Not an alert this time, but a text from Delaney with an attached photo. "Found the perfect souvenir to remember my spiritual journey. The jeweler says diamonds hold positive energy. Isn't it stunning?" The image showed her wrist adorned with a diamond tennis bracelet, price tag visible in the background. $14,000. The same amount we needed to cover payroll for 15 people who depended on us. Beside me, Holden was methodically reviewing our accounts, looking for a solution to a problem he didn't yet understand was entirely preventable. His dedication, his unwavering trust in our partnership, cracked something open inside me. I gazed at the diamond bracelet glittering on my mother-in-law's wrist, bought with our money while our employees' livelihoods hung in the balance, and felt something shift permanently in my soul. Some spiritual awakenings come through meditation and fasting. Mine arrived in the harsh light of a home office at 7 a.m., faced with the consequences of enabling someone who would sink our ship without a second thought. I knew what I had to do. And for the first time since I'd met Delaney, I was no longer afraid to do it. After discovering the diamond bracelet photo, I closed my laptop and told Holden I needed fresh air to think. Walking through our neighborhood that morning, each familiar house and tree seemed different somehow, as if overnight my world had shifted on its axis. My phone buzzed continuously with more transaction alerts, but I couldn't bear to look. Instead, I found myself at Riverside Park, sitting on the same bench where Holden had proposed 8 years earlier. I remembered his earnest face as he promised to build a life with me, a promise he'd kept faithfully while I had been quietly undermining our foundation. The morning fog hung over the river, obscuring the opposite bank. An apt metaphor for my situation. I could see where I stood clearly enough, but the path forward remained shrouded. My options seemed impossible: protect our employees and business but betray Delaney, or protect Delaney but risk everything we'd built. For 3 days I barely slept. I'd lie beside Holden, listening to his steady breathing, envying the peace of his unknowing. During the day, I moved through the workshop like a ghost, smiling mechanically at our craftspeople. Tomas with 3 children at home, Jenna saving for graduate school, Mark supporting his elderly parents. 15 people who trusted us with their livelihoods. On the 3rd sleepless night, I slipped out of bed at 2 a.m. and drove to our workshop. Using my key, I entered the darkened space, breathing in the comforting scent of sawdust and varnish. I flipped on my office light and pulled out the financial records I'd been too afraid to face. Not just recent statements, but 3 years of transactions, invoices, and tax documents. 4 hours, I created a timeline, tracing Delaney's influence through our accounts. The emergency home repair that coincided with her luxury cruise booking. The investment opportunity that matched her new car purchase. The medical bill assistance that aligned perfectly with her cosmetic procedure. A pattern emerged. Each withdrawal following the same emotional manipulation, each repayment promise broken. The total made me physically ill. $167,435 over 3 years. Nearly a third of our business's hard-earned profits, siphoned away by a woman who saw us as nothing but a convenient ATM. Dawn broke as I finished my analysis. As sunlight streamed through the workshop windows, illuminating the half-finished projects that represented our clients' trust and our employees' skills, clarity finally came. This wasn't just about money, it was about respect, boundaries and accountability. I called our bank's fraud department at 8:01 a.m., the moment they opened. "I need to report unauthorized charges on my business credit card," I said, voice steadier than I expected. "Can you verify when your card was lost or stolen?" the representative asked. The question gave me pause. The card hadn't been stolen in the traditional sense. I had willingly, if foolishly, authorized Delaney's access. But looking deeper, something had been stolen. My agency, my boundaries, my self-respect. 2 weeks ago, I answered, the decision cementing itself with each word. The authorized user is making purchases outside the agreed scope. The process was methodical, reviewing charges, verifying details, arranging for replacement cards. When asked if I wanted to press charges if the unauthorized user was identified, I hesitated only briefly. "Yes," I said finally. "This affects more than just me." After ending the call, I sat motionless, absorbing the weight of what I'd done. I had potentially set legal consequences in motion for my husband's mother. Holden would be devastated. Regardless of her flaws, he loved her. But even with the fraud report filed, we still faced an immediate crisis. Payroll was due tomorrow and our account remained dangerously depleted. I drove home in a daze, passing the antique jewelry store where I'd recently had my grandmother's heirloom pieces appraised for insurance. The open sign had just been turned on. I pulled over without conscious decision and walked in, the little bell above the door announcing my arrival. "Mrs. Holden," Mr. Vartanian greeted me, remembering from my previous visit. "Here to pick up your appraisal documents?" "No," I said quietly. "I'm here to sell." His expression softened with understanding. Many family businesses faced cash flow emergencies. He'd seen that look before. I unclasped the pearl necklace I wore daily, my grandmother's wedding gift, passed to me on my own wedding day. From my purse, I removed the velvet pouch containing her sapphire earrings and the delicate gold bracelet inscribed with her initials. Each piece carried memories, stories, connections to the strong woman who had helped raise me. Mr. Vartanian examined each piece carefully, offering a fair price that would cover our payroll with a small buffer. As he counted out the cash, I needed it immediately, no time for checks to clear. I felt an odd sense of rightness. My grandmother had always taught me that people matter more than things. She would have approved of this sacrifice to protect the people depending on us. Back at home, I placed the cash in our safe, changed into work clothes and headed to the workshop. I caught Holden's concerned glance as I passed through to my office, but he was deep in discussion with clients about their commission. At my desk, I methodically processed payroll, ensuring everyone would receive their checks on time. As I worked, my phone lit up with a text from Delaney. "Found the most amazing spiritual guide today. He's offering private crystal healing sessions this weekend. Bit pricey but worth it for the enlightenment. We'll use the card if you don't mind, sweetie. Universe will repay your generosity. Dizzy sparkles." My thumb hovered over the screen, tempted to warn her about the fraud report, to mitigate the shock that awaited. It would be the nice thing, the expected thing. The Noah always accommodates thing. But 15 people were counting on their paychecks. Holden had invested his talent and dreams into this business. And I had finally recognized my own worth, too valuable to be drained away purchase by purchase. I set the phone face down without responding and returned to processing payroll. For the first time since meeting Delaney, I chose silence not from fear or avoidance, but from clarity. Later that evening, as Holden and I shared dinner on our porch, watching fireflies emerge in the twilight, he reached for my neck. "You're not wearing your grandmother's pearls," he observed. "I don't think I've seen you without them since our wedding day." I met his eyes, preparing to share at least part of the truth. "I'm having them rest-strung," I said, the lie bitter but necessary for now. The clasp was getting loose. He nodded, seemingly satisfied, and returned to discussing our weekend plans. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Likely another transaction alert or text from Delaney, but I ignored it. Tomorrow would bring consequences I couldn't fully predict. But tonight I allowed myself to feel the first tentative blooms of freedom. Whatever storm was coming, I would face it standing firmly on the foundation of truth, even if that foundation would need serious repairs in the aftermath. The scales of justice and love rarely balance easily, but for the first time in years I was no longer placing my thumb on either side. Morning came with a startling clarity. the sky an impossible blue after days of clouds. I'd finally slept through the night, the weight of decision lighter than the burden of indecision. Holden had already left for an early client meeting, his side of the bed cool. I stretched, reaching for my phone to check the time, and found 17 missed calls from Delaney. Before I could process this, the phone erupted in my hand, her name flashing on the screen like a warning. Taking a deep breath, I answered. Noelle? Noelle. Her voice wasn't its usual controlled purr but high-pitched, frantic. Something's happened. There's been a terrible mistake. I sat up, heart pounding against my ribs. This was the moment I'd set in motion but hadn't fully prepared for. Delaney? What's wrong? I managed to keep my voice level, concerned but not complicit. The hotel, they're saying the card was reported stolen. There's security outside my door. They won't let me leave until this is cleared up. The words tumbled out between shallow breaths. I tried to check out this morning but everything just exploded. They're talking about calling the police. I closed my eyes, picturing the luxury suite where she'd been staying, the ocean view she texted photos of, captioned my meditation sanctuary. The room service charges on our account. That's awful, I said, infusing my voice with appropriate shock. What did the bank say when you called them? They said, she faltered. They said the primary cardholder reported unauthorized transactions. But that's impossible. You're the primary cardholder. A beat of silence hung between us as the implication settled. Noelle. Her voice hardened slightly. Did you do this? The old Noelle would have crumbled, apologized, found some way to fix it. Instead, I heard myself say, the bank flagged unusual activity. I confirmed those charges weren't authorized for business purposes. Business purposes? Her voice rose again. I'm family. This was for my wellness retreat. You told me I could use it for emergencies. Was the diamond bracelet an emergency, Delaney? The line went so quiet I thought she'd hung up. I don't know what you're talking about, she finally said, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. $14,000 at Forever Diamonds. The same day I had to scramble to make payroll for 15 people. My calm surprised me. Not cold or cruel, simply factual. This is ridiculous, she sputtered. Where's Holden? Put Holden on the phone right now. He's at a client meeting. He doesn't know about this yet. That wasn't entirely true. He knew we had financial troubles but not their source or my solution. The realization that I'd acted independently in our marriage sent a fresh wave of anxiety through me. You went behind his back? Delaney's voice turned triumphant. You reported his mother for fraud without telling him? Oh, Noelle. When he finds out what you've done. The implied threat hung between us. She would tell him first, paint me as the villain. I need to go, I said quietly. I hope you can sort things out with the hotel. Noel, don't you dare hang up. You need to call the bank right now and tell them this was all a mistake. Noelle. I ended the call, hands shaking but resolve intact. Within minutes, my phone lit up with texts. Fix this immediately. Holden will never forgive you. I'm being treated like a criminal. This will destroy your marriage. I silenced the notifications and headed to the workshop. Whatever happened next, I needed to be at my desk when it unfolded. The morning passed in a blur. I processed invoices mechanically, signed for deliveries, confirmed appointments. Our employees sensed something was off but respectfully maintained distance from my closed office door. At noon, my desk phone rang, the front desk announcing Holden's arrival with lunch. He entered carrying a brown paper bag from our favorite sandwich shop, concern etched on his face. I've been trying to reach you all morning, he said, setting the food down. Your phone's going straight to voicemail. Sorry, I murmured. It's been a complicated day. Before I could continue, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, frowning. It's from the bank. Something about a fraud alert on our business account. The moment of truth had arrived sooner than expected. I watched his expression shift as he read the notification, confusion to shock to something unreadable. Noelle, he said carefully, setting his phone down. Did you report Mom's card as stolen? The question hung in the air between us. I nodded, unable to find words that wouldn't sound defensive or accusatory. To my surprise, he sank into the chair across from my desk and simply asked, why? That single word, not angry, not accusatory, but genuinely seeking understanding, broke the dam I'd built around the truth. She spent over $80,000 in 2 weeks, Holden. That's on top of nearly $170,000 over the past 3 years. My voice strengthened as I continued. I sold my grandmother's jewelry yesterday to make payroll. I've been covering her emergencies for years by taking on freelance work and lying to you about our finances. His face paled. That's not possible. Mom wouldn't. I opened my desk drawer and withdrew the folder containing my financial investigation. Every transaction highlighted, every correlation to Delaney's convenient emergencies documented. Silently, I slid it across the desk. As Holden reviewed the evidence, my computer pinged with an incoming email. The subject line caught my attention. Action required. Attempted password reset business loan account. I opened it, stomach sinking. Someone had attempted to access our business loan portal using my credentials. The IP address traced to Miami. She's trying to access our loans now, I said quietly, turning the screen toward Holden. Using my information. His hands trembled slightly as he set down the financial records and examined the email. Something shifted in his expression. The last threads of denial giving way to painful recognition. She's done this before, he said so softly I almost missed it. With my dad before the divorce. With my sister's college fund. I just never thought. Tears filled my eyes as the weight of years of deception crashed over me. I'm so sorry, Holden. I should have told you. I was afraid. Afraid you'd think I was attacking her, afraid of coming between you. I kept thinking I could handle it, fix it without hurting you. Holden reached across the desk, taking my hand in his. No, he said firmly. I'm sorry I didn't see what was happening. That you felt you had to protect me from the truth. The office phone rang shrilly, interrupting our moment. I answered on speakerphone. Mrs. Holden? A formal, unfamiliar voice. This is Officer Rivera with Miami-Dade Police Department. We're calling regarding a Delaney Holden who has been detained at the Ocean View Hotel on suspicion of credit card fraud. She claims you're her daughter-in-law and can clear this up. Holden and I exchanged glances. 1,000 unspoken words passing between us. Yes, I said finally. She's my mother-in-law. And no, I cannot clear this up. The fraud report is accurate. After ending the call, the silence in my office felt both deafening and somehow cleansing. The truth, painful, messy, complicated, was finally unraveling in the light. The phone call with the Miami police had barely ended when my cell phone rang again. This time from a blocked number. I answered on speakerphone, Holden still beside me. This is a collect call from Miami-Dade Detention Center. Will you accept the charges? A computerized voice announced. Holden nodded, his jaw tight but resolute. Yes, I said. Delaney's voice came through, stripped of its usual polished confidence. Noelle? They're holding me here, like some common criminal. You need to tell them this was all a misunderstanding. I took a deep breath, feeling Holden's steady presence beside me. I can't do that, Delaney. It wasn't a misunderstanding. Do you have any idea what you've done? Her voice cracked. They're saying this is a felony. That I could be deported? I'm an American citizen. With a Canadian passport, Holden interjected quietly. You never gave up your dual citizenship after marrying Dad. There was a moment of stunned silence from the other end. Holden, you're there too? Sweetheart, you have to make her understand. This will ruin everything. My life, my reputation. Mom, Holden said, his voice gentle but firm. I've seen the records. All of them. This has to stop. What records? What is she talking about? Holden, she's trying to turn you against me. Delaney's voice rose, that familiar manipulation slipping back in despite her circumstances. No more, Mom. Holden's words came out weighted with finality. We can't help you this time. The call ended soon after, with Delaney cycling through threats, tears, and finally cold silence. As I set the phone down, my hands were surprisingly steady. The worst had happened, and yet the world hadn't ended. Something like peace settled over me. Not happiness exactly, but the quiet certainty of having finally chosen truth over comfort. 3 days later, we received official notification that Delaney had been processed through the immigration court. As a Canadian citizen who had committed credit card fraud exceeding $10,000, she was deemed inadmissible to the United States for 10 years. She had been escorted to the Canadian border with only her personal belongings. She has family in Toronto, Holden said quietly as we sat on our porch swing that evening, the notification letter between us. My aunt will help her get settled. I searched his face in the fading light. Are you okay? His smile was sad but genuine. Not entirely. But I will be. He took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. She's been doing this her whole life, Noelle. Using people, taking what isn't hers. I just never wanted to see it. The email started 2 days later. Lengthy, emotional appeals from Delaney describing her humiliation and abandonment. Each message calculated to maximize guilt, to paint herself as the victim of cruel circumstances rather than the architect of her own downfall. I forwarded them to Holden without reading past the subject lines. Together we created a special folder where they would automatically be filed, not deleted, but not allowed to interrupt our healing either. We might need them someday, Holden explained, if she tries to contact the business or our employees. That practical concern led to our first major post-Delaney project, restructuring our entire business operation. We hired a certified financial advisor who specialized in small businesses, explaining our situation with unexpected ease. The shame I'd anticipated didn't materialize. Instead, I felt something like pride in taking concrete steps to protect what we'd built. You'd be surprised how common family financial entanglement is, our advisor Miriam assured us. But not everyone has the courage to address it directly. Together we implemented a comprehensive system of checks and balances, requiring dual authorization for purchases over a certain amount, establishing clear policies for business expenses, creating separate personal and business accounts with appropriate barriers. The workshop walls soon featured a large whiteboard tracking our financial goals and progress, transparency becoming our new normal. One unexpected outcome of the Delaney situation emerged on a rainy Tuesday 3 weeks later. Holden received an email from his younger brother Ian, whom I'd met only once at our wedding 7 years ago. He wants to meet for coffee, Holden said, surprise evident in his voice. Says he heard about Mom from Aunt Susan. The meeting extended from a quick coffee to a 3-hour conversation. Ian arrived with his sister, Grace, both initially cautious but increasingly animated as Holden shared our experience. She drained my college fund when I was 19, Grace revealed, her fingers tight around her mug. Claimed she was investing it for me. When I confronted her, she told everyone I was ungrateful and troubled. I stopped trying to explain after a while. Ian nodded. With me it was the small business loan I qualified for. She convinced me to add her to the account for emergency oversight, since she had so much business experience. 3 months later the money was gone and so was she. The siblings exchanged contact information before leaving, with plans for a proper dinner soon. Watching Holden hug his sister goodbye, awkward but genuine, I felt a bittersweet happiness. Delaney's financial manipulation had cost us much, but her absence was allowing broken family bonds to heal. At home that night, I found Holden sitting on our bedroom floor, surrounded by old photo albums I'd never seen before. My dad sent these, he explained, making room for me beside him. Said it was time I had them. Together we flipped through images of a younger Holden with his siblings, building sandcastles, riding bikes, making silly faces at the camera. In most photos their father was present, but Delaney appeared infrequently, often at the edges, immaculately dressed and somehow separate from the family's casual joy. I always thought Dad took these memories in the divorce, Holden said quietly. But he says Mom refused to have them in her house. Said they didn't match her decor. I leaned my head against his shoulder, understanding hitting me with sudden clarity. She didn't want reminders of a life she couldn't control. 6 months after Delaney's deportation, our business was thriving. The financial boundaries we'd established had not only protected us from external manipulation but had improved our operational efficiency. Our employees, now fully aware of what had happened, though not from us, small-town gossip took care of that, demonstrated a loyalty that humbled me. On our 8th anniversary, Holden surprised me with a small velvet box. Inside lay my grandmother's pearl necklace. How did you, I began, tears welling. Mr. Vartanian called me the day after you sold it, Holden explained, fastening it around my neck. He held it back from resale, said he knew it was too precious to let go. I've been making payments on it for months. That night, standing in our bedroom mirror, I studied my reflection. The pearls at my throat, the woman I had become. I no longer saw the anxious people-pleaser who had allowed herself to be manipulated, nor did I see a villain who had reported family for fraud. Instead, I recognized someone stronger than she'd known, braver than she'd believed, capable of both compassion and boundaries. No regrets? Holden asked, meeting my eyes in the mirror. Not one, I answered truthfully. The path had been painful, but the foundation beneath us now, built on honesty, mutual respect, and hard-earned wisdom, was unshakable. If this story of standing firm against manipulation resonated with you, consider subscribing for more tales of courage and transformation. Your support helps us share these stories that remind us we're never alone in our struggles. Thank you for being part of our journey.